Hiram Abiff is mentioned several times in the Bible, and they are not all the same person. In some passages Hiram is a king, who is often confused with Hiram Abiff, the chief architect. This mistaken identity is so common Hiram is distinguished in Freemasonry, and it is explained that they are not the same person. In some passages it is explained, there was a formal request from Solomon to King Hiram for the need of workers and materials. King Hiram responded saying, he will send the best architect that he can send, describing him as a superb master of the trade. This architect was said to be the son of a woman, who was one of the daughters of Dan, and his father was a man of Tyre. Said to be good with metal working, dyes, fabrics, engravings, and architectural planning. Hiram Abiff was the widow's son, sent by Solomon to cast bronze finishing and ornaments upon the new temple. He was from the tribe of Naphtali, son of Tyrian, and a bronze worker. In the King James Version of the Bible, Hiram is pronounced Hiram for Hiram Abiff. The Freemasons translate the name differently and suggest that Hiram Abiff was actually Hiram, suggesting that Hiram Abiff was actually the father of King Hiram. This was introduced and suggested because of readings from Martin Luther and Miles Coverdale, quoting 2 Chronicles 4:16. The Freemasons use the Vulgate, Douay-Rheims Bible, Wycliffe's Bible, the Septuagint, the Bishop's Bible and the Geneva Bible for studies. In Antiquities of the Jews, Chapter 8, 7-6, Josephus makes reference to Hiram Abiff. He states that Hiram's mother was from the tribe of Naphtali, and his father was of Ur and of Jewish stock. In Targum Sheni mentioned Hiram Abiff in the Book of Esther, stating, Hiram Abiff constructed the throne of Solomon, used by the descendants of Cyrus the Great. In Voyage en Orient, written in 1851 by Gerard de Nerval, the name Hiram Abiff changed after the death to Adoniram. Hiram, now Adoniram, then goes on many grand adventures that interweave with Solomon, Balkis, and the Queen of Sheba. By this point the ruffians within the story were hired by King Solomon to kill Hiram Abiff out of jealousy, because of a mutual relationship between Hiram Abiff and the Queen of Sheba. Other references indicate that Hiram Abiff was Egyptian, but the Freemasons disagreed with that theory. Another theory suggested a resemblance between the murder of Hiram Abiff and the murder of Renaud de Montauban in the 12th century, who was killed like his prototype, with a hammer blow to the head while working on the Cologne Cathedral. His body was hidden and then miraculously discovered too. It was also suggested that the story may have been inspired by Dhul Nun ul Misri and the Sufi sect ul Banna, who were referred to as the builders who build the Al-Aqsa Mosque and the Dome of the Rock. Also believed to be the inspiration for the great cathedrals of the Gothic style in medieval Christian Europe, after the Templars and the arrival of the cathedrals. The Knights Templar is a Freemason degree associated with the Knights of Malta, or Order of Malta in the standalone tradition. It is also referred to as the Templar degree, the Order of Malta, Order of Knights of Malta, Ancient and Masonic Order of St. John of Jerusalem, Palestine, Rhodes and Malta. St. John is the basis of teachings within the order. The ceremony is mixed with tradition, history of St. John, moral teachings, and the modes of communication between members. Banners are presented that represent battles fought with St. John. Supposedly Freemasonry traces back to Euclid, Pythagoras, Moses, Essenes, the Chaldees, Druids and Noahides. Andrew Michael Ramsey wrote a lecture, adding the Templars into the story. This then involved Gotthelf von Hunn's rite of strict observance, and linking the exiled House of Stuart, claiming that the murder of Hiram Abiff was allegoric for the murder of Charles I, indicating Oliver Cromwell as the founder of the Freemason order, according to the Antimasonics. Antimasonics then implicated Francis Bacon with the Rosicrucians in Christoph Friedrich Nicolai's writings. Christopher Wren's connection was omitted in Anderson's first constitutions, but were later added after Wren's death. Joseph Gabriel Findel tried to trace Freemason history back in an attempt to link it to the Egyptians, and figure out how lodges had spread to Germany and France. Because of misinformation, Findel was unable to And the stories most likely didn't originate that far back in history, as so many would have wished to suggest. Hiram Abiff is an allegorical character presented in a play, during the third degree of the Freemason order. He was the chief architect of Solomon's temple who was murdered by 3 ruffians, in a failed attempt at gaining the master mason's secret password. Hiram dies with his secret instead. The story is meant to teach the members about fidelity, one's word, and the brevity of life. Hiram Abiff arrived in Jerusalem, and was appointed chief architect of Solomon's temple. The temple at this point is still being built, but at the completion of the temple is where the murder occurred. The ruffians then hide the body under a pile of rubble, and wait until that night to return and bury the body. They return and bury the body in a shallow grave, marking it with a sprig of acacia. The story goes according to each of the tools Hiram Abiff was struck with during the murder. Each hit is considered an assault and each tool varies, according to jurisdiction within the Freemasons. In the United States, the ruffians murdered Hiram Abiff for his password, so that they can increase their wages. The secrets of Solomon's temple aren't lost in the United States version of the story. They were buried beneath the temple upon its completion with the body of Hiram Abiff. The story in the United States say that when Hiram Abiff was missed the next day, Solomon sent his master architects to find him. Other jurisdictions say that Solomon sent his fellowship masons. The change in the story occurred in the United States to show respect for the hierarchy within the ranks of the Freemasons. After sending out the masons, Hiram Abiff is found in his shallow grave. The ruffians' hideout was discovered and they were brought to justice. Seeing that the password of Hiram Abiff may have been compromised, Solomon changed it, incorporating substitutes that consist of gestures and words spoken when Hiram Abiff was discovered dead. In many traditions, Hiram Abiff is renamed at this point to Adoniram.